I wrote a 20-page confession to save my marriage. My husband used it as Exhibit A. I thought radical honesty would bring him back. I didn't realize I was writing my own divorce verdict. I thought I was writing a love letter. I thought I was writing a bridge back to my husband's heart. I poured my soul into 20 pages of radical honesty. I detailed every date, every text, every mistake. I signed it at the bottom. I slid it under his door. I thought he would read it and see my remorse. I thought he would see that I was willing to bleed to save us. I didn't realize I wasn't writing a love letter. I was writing a confession. I was writing an affidavit. And when we got to court, my husband didn't look at me with forgiveness. He looked at the judge and said, "Your Honor, please see Exhibit A. The respondent has already admitted to everything in writing. My name is Eleanor Calloway. I am 29 years old. And I am the woman who dug her own grave, laid down in it, and handed my husband the shovel." To understand why I did it, and why his reaction was so clinically brutal, you have to understand Emilio. I was married to Emilio Calloway for 5 years. Emilio was 34. He wasn't a romantic. He wasn't a poet. He was a corporate compliance officer for a major pharmaceutical company. But before that, he was an actuary. Do you know what an actuary does? They calculate risk. They look at a human life, a complex, breathing, messy human life, and they turn it into a number. They predict when you will die, how likely you are to crash your car, and how much you are worth in the event of a catastrophe. Emilio came from chaos. His parents were hoarders, disorganized addicts who lived in squalor. Emilio survived by becoming the opposite. He built his life on order. On lists. On rules. If it wasn't documented, it didn't happen. If it was documented, it was gospel. He was the most reliable man I ever met. He managed our life like a corporation. He had spreadsheets for our grocery budget. He had a maintenance schedule for the HVAC system. He knew exactly how much money we would have in our 401(k)s in the year 2055. I, on the other hand, came from comfort. I had never known chaos, so I romanticized it. I found his precision boring. I found his silence suffocating. I felt like a bird trapped in a clean, well-lit cage. I wanted passion. I wanted screaming matches in the rain. I wanted someone who would break the rules for me, just to prove he felt something. So, I found Travis Miller. Travis was a project manager in my department. He was messy. He was loud. He was always 10 minutes late and laughed it off. He drove a beat-up Jeep with the check engine light on. He was married, too, but he rolled his eyes when his wife called. He felt like a rebellion against the structured, quiet life Emilio had built for us. The affair was a cliché. It started with lunch breaks that ran long. Then happy hours. Then working late. Then hotels. I told myself it wasn't serious. I told myself it was just a dopamine hit to get me through the drudgery of my perfect, safe marriage. I thought I was being careful. I deleted texts. I used cash. I thought I was smarter than the system. But you can't hide from the people who really know you. It was a Tuesday when the bubble burst. I was at Le Jardin, a French bistro 3 towns over. I was holding Travis's hand across the table. We were laughing about something stupid, probably mocking Emilio's obsession with checking the tire pressure on our cars. Then I felt a shadow over the table. I looked up. It was Sophia. My best friend since college. My maid of honor. She wasn't smiling. She was holding a takeout bag, her knuckles white. "Sophia," I gasped, pulling my hand away from Travis as if I had touched a hot stove. This isn't. Sophia didn't look at Travis. She looked right at me. Her eyes were filled with a mixture of disgust and heartbreak. "I'm going to the car," she said, her voice shaking. "You have 2 minutes to get out there, Eleanor. Or I'm driving straight to Emilio's office." She walked out. I left Travis at the table with the check. I ran out to the parking lot. Sophia was leaning against her car, crying. How could you? She screamed. Emilio is a good man. He adores you. He fixed my sink last week. He's the godfather to my nephew. He treats you like gold. It's complicated, I pleaded. We've been having problems. You don't understand. He's emotionally unavailable. He's not unavailable, Eleanor, he's quiet. Sophia snapped. And you're repaying him by cheating on him in public? She wiped her eyes. She looked at me with a cold resolve I had never seen before. I'm not going to be an accomplice to this, Eleanor. I'm not going to lie to Emilio's face. She checked her watch. It's Tuesday. I'm giving you until Friday at 5 p.m. You tell him. You confess. If you don't, I will. I have the photos, Eleanor. I took them through the window. Sophia, please, I begged. It will destroy him. You destroyed him, she said. Now you just have to tell him. I didn't tell him. Wednesday passed. I felt sick. I looked at Emilio across the dinner table. He was talking about a regulatory audit at work. He looked so calm. So unsuspecting. Thursday passed. I tried to work up the courage. I couldn't do it. I convinced myself Sophia was bluffing. She was my best friend. She wouldn't actually blow up my life. She was just trying to scare me straight. Friday came. The clock ticked down. 3 p.m. 4 p.m. At 4:55 p.m., I texted Sophia, please don't. I'll end it with Travis. I promise. Just give me time. She didn't reply. At 6:30 p.m., I came home from work. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Emilio? I called out. No answer. I walked into the kitchen. There was no dinner cooking. Usually, the smell of garlic and onions would be in the air. Tonight, nothing. I walked upstairs. The door to the master bedroom was open. Emilio was there. He was packing a suitcase. My stomach dropped. Emilio? I whispered. He stopped packing. He turned around. He didn't scream. He didn't cry. He didn't throw a vase. He looked at me with the same expression he wore when he found a compliance violation at work. Disappointment. Detachment. Calculation. It was the look of a man who had already assessed the damage and was now moving to the mitigation phase. Sophia called me, he said. His voice was devoid of emotion. She sent me the photos. Emilio, let me explain, I started, stepping forward. It meant nothing. It was a mistake. It was just. I was confused. He held up a hand. Stop. He zipped the suitcase. I am moving into the guest room, he said. I have installed a keypad lock on the door. Do not attempt to enter. Do not speak to me. Do not cook for me. He picked up the bag. I will be contacting a lawyer on Monday. I suggest you do the same. He walked past me, into the hallway, and into the guest room. The door clicked shut. Then I heard the electronic beep of the lock engaging. The weekend was a nightmare. Emilio was a ghost in his own house. He left early in the morning. He came back late at night. If we crossed paths in the kitchen, he looked through me like I was glass. The silence was worse than screaming. It felt like he had already deleted me. I tried to get a reaction. I cooked his favorite meal on Saturday, lasagna. I left it on the counter. Sunday morning, I found the lasagna in the trash, untouched. He hadn't even taken a bite. I panicked. I needed to fix this. I needed to show him I was still his wife. I went online. I scoured marriage counseling forums. I read articles on affair recovery. I fell down a rabbit hole of bad advice. I found a forum called The Wayward Wife. It was full of people who had cheated and were desperately trying to save their marriages. One thread was titled, "How I Saved My Marriage After D-Day." The poster wrote, "The triple truth kills the marriage. You need radical honesty." My husband said the only thing that saved us was when I wrote a timeline. I listed every detail. It showed him I was done lying. It showed him I respected his need to know the truth. The comments agreed. The truth sets you free. You have to lance the boil. I latched onto this idea. This was it. This was my grand gesture. I would show Emilio that I respected him enough to tell him the ugly truth. I would strip myself bare. I sat down at my laptop on Sunday morning. I started typing. But I didn't just type from memory. I went full forensic investigator on myself. I wanted it to be accurate. I wanted Emilio to see the effort. I opened my Google Maps timeline. I tracked my location history for the last 6 months. October 12th, 6:45 p.m. Location, the Blue Bar. Duration, 2 hours. October 20th, 1 p.m. Location, Marriott Downtown. Duration, 90 minutes. Seeing the data like that made me sick. It wasn't a romance anymore. It was a pattern of deception. It was ugly. I opened my bank statements. I cross-referenced the dates. October 20th, withdrawal, $180 cash, ATM. I wrote it all down. The timeline. October 4th, first lunch with Travis. We flirted. October 12th, drinks at the Blue Bar. First kiss in the parking lot. October 20th, hotel room at the Marriott Downtown. $180 charged to cash. I told you I was at a vendor meeting. I poured it all out. I didn't spare myself. I detailed the lies I told Emilio. I'm working late, I'm at a conference. I detailed the money I spent. I detailed the physical intimacy. I detailed the things Travis said about Emilio, how we laughed that Emilio was too uptight. It was grueling. I cried the whole time. But I felt a strange sense of catharsis. I thought, this is the work. This is the healing. Emilio loves data. He will respect this. By Sunday night, I had 20 pages. Single-spaced. But I knew a document wasn't enough. I needed an action. I needed a sacrifice. I needed to show Emilio that I chose him over everything. Even my career. Even Travis. I made a decision that makes me nauseous to think about now. On Monday morning, I printed the timeline. I signed the last page in blue ink. Then, I drove to work. I stopped at a coffee shop and texted Travis. Meet me in the parking lot. Now. He came out, looking nervous. Hey, he said, looking around. We have to be careful. Sophia. It's over, Travis, I said. And I'm fixing it. Good, he said, relieved. We'll just lay low for a while. Let it blow over. No, I said. I'm going to HR. Travis's face went pale. What? I'm reporting us. I'm telling them everything. I have to show Emilio I'm serious. Are you insane? Travis screamed. You're going to get us fired. I have kids, Eleanor. I have a mortgage. I have a husband. I screamed back. And I'm losing him. I left Travis standing there, shouting at my bumper. I drove to the office. I walked into the HR director's office. Lorraine looked confused. Eleanor? Lorraine asked. Is everything okay? No, I said. I need to make a report. I have violated the company's code of conduct regarding fraternization. I confessed. I told her about the affair with Travis. I told her we had used company time. I told her everything. I blew up my career. I blew up Travis's career. They suspended us both pending an investigation. I walked out of the office with a box of my things, unemployed, humiliated, but feeling a strange, martyr-like pride. See, Emilio? I thought. I burned it all down for you. I drove home. Emilio's car was in the driveway. I walked up to the guest room door. I knocked gently. No answer. I slid the manila envelope under the door. Inside was the 20-page timeline and a copy of my suspension letter from HR. Emilio, I whispered through the wood. I told them. I quit. Travis is gone. And I wrote it all down. Everything. No more secrets. I love you. Please read it. I waited. I heard footsteps. I saw the envelope disappear as he pulled it through to the other side. Then, silence. I waited for the explosion. I waited for the tears. I waited for him to come out and scream at me, or hug me, or something. Nothing happened. Monday turned into Tuesday. Tuesday turned into Friday. Emilio continued his routine. He went to work, he was the only one of us working now. He came home. He went to the guest room. But there was a subtle shift. He wasn't just cold anymore, he was almost polite. He nodded at me in the hallway. He stopped locking the guest room door when he went to the bathroom. I thought, it's working. He's processing. The honesty is working. I was delusional. I was living in a romance novel. Emilio was living in a deposition. 2 weeks passed. On a Thursday afternoon, the doorbell rang. I opened it. A man in a cheap windbreaker was standing there. Eleanor Calloway? Yes? You've been served. He handed me a thick packet of papers. I stood in the doorway, my hands shaking. I opened the packet. Petition for dissolution of marriage. I scanned the pages. My eyes blurred. Irreconcilable differences, adultery, division of assets. Then I turned to the back. To the evidence section. My heart stopped. Exhibit A, Respondent's Voluntary Written Confession, attached. There it was. My love letter. My 20-page timeline. Every page scanned. Every humiliating detail preserved in federal court record font. Exhibit B, Notice of Termination from, company name. The letter I had proudly slid under his door, proving I had been fired for misconduct. I fell to my knees in the hallway. The front door opened. Emilio walked in. He stepped over the papers scattered on the floor. Emilio, I choked out. You used it? I wrote that for us. I wrote that to heal us. Emilio stopped. He looked down at me. For the first time in weeks, he spoke more than 2 words. You wrote a sworn affidavit, Eleanor, he said. His voice was terrifyingly calm. You signed it. You dated it. You voluntarily provided it to me without coercion. But it was an apology. No, Emilio said. It was evidence. He crouched down, just for a second, to look me in the eye. You listed the hotel dates. That proves adultery, so I don't need a waiting period for the divorce. You listed the prices of the dinners and the rooms. That proves dissipation of marital assets, which means I can deduct every cent you spend on him from your share of the house equity. He pointed to the HR letter. And you reported yourself to HR. Which proves you are professionally unstable and unemployed due to your own misconduct. Which means I will not be paying you a dime in alimony, because your lack of income is a result of intentional self-sabotage. He stood up. I didn't have to hire a private investigator, Eleanor. I didn't have to subpoena your phone records. You did all the work for me. You handed me the case on a silver platter. I loved you. I screamed. I did it because I loved you. If you loved me, Emilio said, walking toward the kitchen, you wouldn't have needed a timeline. The mediation meeting was the final nail in the coffin. My lawyer, Mr. Sterling, was an old, tired man. We sat in a conference room with Emilio and his shark of a lawyer. Mr. Sterling looked at the timeline and put his head in his hands. "You signed it?" he asked me in a whisper. "You signed a confession listing every time you slept with him?" "I thought it was the right thing to do," I whispered back. "It was," my lawyer said drily. "For him. For you, it was suicide." Emilio's lawyer sat there, smiling. He didn't even have to argue. He just read from my timeline. Page 12, the lawyer read aloud. "I told Emilio I was at my mother's, but I was at the Motel 6 with Travis. We ordered pizza." Hearing my own words read back to me in a cold, legal setting was agonizing. It sounded so cheap. So tawdry. "Your Honor," Emilio's lawyer would say later, "this documents a pattern of deceit and financial waste. The respondent admits to spending over $4,000 of marital funds on the affair. We are asking for that to be deducted from her settlement." The judge agreed. The timeline was damning. It painted me not just as a cheater, but as a calculated, deceitful person who kept a log of her lies. I lost everything. Emilio kept the house, I couldn't buy him out. I got no alimony. I got a fraction of the savings because Emilio successfully argued I had wasted thousands on the affair. But the destruction wasn't just financial. It was total. Emilio didn't just use the timeline in court. He used it to clear his name with our families. 2 days after the mediation, my mother called me. She was sobbing. "Eleanor," she said, "we got a package from Emilio." My blood ran cold. "What package?" "It's a document. A timeline." "Eleanor, how could you?" It says you mocked him?" He had sent it to them. He had sent the timeline to my parents. To his parents. To our mutual friends. He didn't add a note. He didn't write a letter explaining his side. He just sent the document I wrote. He let my own words convict me. My father hasn't spoken to me since. He said he couldn't look at me knowing what I did in those hotels. I am an orphan of my own making. Let's talk about Travis. When I reported us to HR, I thought I was being a martyr. I didn't stop to think about Travis's life. Travis was fired immediately. His career in our industry was over, word travels fast. But worse, the termination letter triggered an audit of his company emails. They found everything. Not just our affair, but his other indiscretions. His casual theft of office supplies. His misuse of company cards. His wife, Camilla, found out because he lost his health insurance. She left him within a week. She took their 2 kids. I saw Travis once, about 6 months later. I was coming out of a grocery store. He was loading bags into a rusted sedan. He looked 10 years older. He saw me and his face twisted into pure hatred. "You psycho," he spat at me across the parking lot. "You couldn't just leave? You had to burn the building down with us inside?" I got in my car and drove away shaking. He was right. I was an arsonist who thought she was a firefighter. And Emilio? You might think a man like that, cold, analytical, betrayed, would be broken. You might think he would retreat into his shell. You would be wrong. Emilio flourished. The divorce liberated him. He realized that for 5 years, he had been carrying me, carrying my chaos, my emotional volatility, my need for drama. Without me, he was lighter. He poured himself into his work. He was promoted to Chief Compliance Officer 2 months after the divorce was finalized. His salary doubled. But it wasn't just money. He found someone. I found out through social media, of course. I stalked him. Her name is Amelia. She's an actuary, just like he used to be. She's beautiful in a quiet, understated way. She wears glasses. She likes order. I saw a photo of them in Napa, the trip Emilio was planning for us before Sophia outed me. They were sitting at a vineyard, looking at a spreadsheet together, smiling. They looked peaceful. They looked safe. Emilio looked happier than I had ever seen him. He didn't need passion. He needed peace. And he found it with someone who didn't need to burn things down to feel warm. And me? I am the ghost of my own life. I live in a basement apartment that smells like mildew. I work as a waitress at a chain restaurant because no corporate office will hire me. The background checks always flag my termination for gross misconduct. The timeline followed me. It's a public record in the divorce filing. Anyone who Googles Eleanor Calloway divorce can find it. I tried dating. I went out with a nice guy a few weeks ago. His name was Patrick. We met on an app. On the third date, we were having coffee. He looked at me strangely. He put his phone on the table. "Eleanor," he said. "I have to ask you something." "What?" I smiled, hopeful. "I looked you up. Just a standard Google search." My stomach dropped. "And?" "I found a court document. A timeline. It details you cheating on your husband. It lists dates. Hotel prices. It says you reported yourself to HR?" I froze. I was trying to save my marriage," I whispered. Patrick shook his head. "It looks like a list of conquests. It looks like you were proud of it. Or worse, like you're unstable. Who writes that down?" I was trying to be honest. "It's too much drama, Eleanor," Patrick said, standing up. "I can't bring that into my life. I'm sorry." He left me there with the cold coffee. Sometimes, late at night, I sit on my floor in my slip dress, the same one I wore when I wrote the document. I think about the clicking of the keys. I think about the tears I cried, thinking I was saving my soul. I thought the truth would set me free. I learned the hard way that the truth is just data. And in the hands of a man who knows how to use it, data is a weapon. I tried to write a romance. Emilio turned it into a case study. I wrote the story of my affair to save my life. Instead, it became the script for my execution. Hit like if you think Emilio was a genius, or if he was heartless. #TheTimelineTrap